So, not as many people that should know this. In 1942, about 120,000 Japanese Americans in total were imprisoned in the US, and over 16,000 Japanese Americans from the West were incarcerated in Arkansas, at 2 internment camps. One in Rower, and one in Jerome. The wider known term for the camps were, and still are, relocation centers, so they didn't sound so bad to the rest of the Americans. These camps were the only 2 camps located east of Colorado. During World War II, without charges, and without trial, the Japanese were forced out of their homes in America, their bank accounts frozen, their businesses forced to close. And even the sick, frail elderly, dragged out of hospitals, as they were shipped by train to horse stables, or more known as assembly centers, where they would live, pee, poop, sleep, eat, and even die, until they were sent to these internment camps, which contained the same living conditions. They also had to perform the Pledge of Allegiance, which ironically tells a tale of liberty and justice for all. People outside of these camps in Arkansas were not told about the horrible living conditions in the camps. They were told that they were getting free food, free education, free healthcare, etc., so they were wrongfully envious of the Japanese. George Takei, which you may know from the show Star Trek, was imprisoned at the Rower internment camp in Arkansas when he was only 5 years old. He said, "Our father had told us that we were going for a long vacation in the country. I believed him. I thought it would be a wonderful adventure. Our father told us we were going to a camp called Rower in a faraway place called Arkansas. I thought all vacations in the country had armed uniformed soldiers at both ends of each train car taking us there, and I wondered why the grown-ups looked so sad. We were going on a vacation. I believe," as he also stated, "that it is a very shameful and still little known chapter of American history, as well as state history." Also, you may wonder why these camps were built in these specific places. Well, the government decided to build the camps on tax-delinquent properties, which meant they would take land away from US citizens that had not paid their property taxes, to build prison camps for the Japanese, which the Japanese also had to build themselves in some cases. I went to visit these internment camps in Arkansas, and these locations are now farmland. Today all that remains of the once 500-acre internment camp is the Rower Memorial Cemetery, where many Japanese Americans interned at the camp were laid to rest, and a tall smokestack, where the camp's hospital used to stand. 2 large monuments also are located in the cemetery, honoring all those who passed away while interned there, as well as the young men from the camp who gave their lives fighting for the US in World War II. The regiment that the Japanese Americans were in was called the 442nd Battalion. The Japanese that were interned at the camp also constructed the monument honoring this battalion while they were imprisoned there. They were released in 1945, where they were offered labor jobs in surrounding farmland in Arkansas. Some of them took the offer, knowing that they had no homes to return to in the West. Many Japanese-owned homes and businesses were vandalized and destroyed, due to the discrimination that was held against them due to the attack on Pearl Harbor and the war against Japan. I've lived in Arkansas for 25 years, and just learned about this subject, even when it took place in the very state that I live in. It took 40 years after their imprisonment to get an official apology from the US president, with a measly $20,000 token redress to all those that were alive, when President Roosevelt signed the executive orders to incarcerate them, which many, if still alive, did not accept, for obvious reasons. If you live in Arkansas, or anywhere for that matter, I would suggest that you visit the World War II Japanese American Internment Museum in McGee, Arkansas. It still stands, right next to the train tracks, where thousands of Japanese prisoners were forced to travel to a destination surrounded by barbed wire and armed guards. Some of the people that were incarcerated at these camps occasionally returned to them, including George Takei, which has come to make speeches at the museum, and also the families of those incarcerated will come to learn the history of the tragic events that occurred in their loved ones' lives. I just figured I would address this subject, since it is little known even by the people who have lived here all their lives. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments below, and do some research on the entire subject of the Japanese American internment camps in America while you're at it. I will also link videos of interviews of those who lived there, so you can hear it straight from them, and some links where you can learn more. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. George Santayana, 1905.